Hello, welcome to today's immigration tidbit. Although it won't be exactly a tidbit today, I thought I would just give a bit of an overview, generalized overview of immigration law because I do hundreds and hundreds of tidbits, little, bits of here and there. And, as you can see, immigration law is like a 10,000 piece puzzle. And I can do, several immigration bits on each of those pieces. So sometimes it's good to see, the whole forest, sort of say, of immigration law in order to best determine, uh, where one might go. There's been a lot of times in the past where people that I know, and meaning clients, have paid extraordinarily ridiculous amounts to a coyote, for example, to get here illegally, only to be caught, put in detention, and deported, and sometimes get a permanent bar. And these people, some of them, qualify for different types of relief. They could have come the legitimate way had they known about it. And they wouldn't have had to, for example, sit in the back of a truck, uh, violated the law like they did, been scared out of their lives, probably been, you know, put in danger had they known. Now, immigration law does change all the time. In one respect, that makes it, more exciting to practice. In another respect, unlike, for example, real estate law, no offense to real estate lawyers, but, more or less it's the same as it was 10 years ago, minus different things. But, one thing can change on immigration law in one case that could change all kinds of stuff. That's why, for example, in my attorney-client agreements, I make it clear that, whatever we're doing is per the law now, and that if it changes and there's different things that can be done, that we would have to discuss, what needs to be done to go forward. So, when you're talking about immigration law, there's several major categories. Okay, one that everybody knows is the green card. Okay, lawful permanent residency. How can you obtain that? Another is citizenship. How can you obtain citizenship? Become a U.S. citizen. All kinds of branches under there. Another is deportation or removal. How do you fight a removal proceeding? How do you fight a deportation order? How do you get back in the country? Another area is motion practice. Motion to reopen, motion to reconsider, motion to terminate. And there's a plethora of different kinds of motions that are made in a variety of different kinds of venues, depending. There is appellate practice, okay? And again, you could appeal to all different kinds of immigration appellate agencies, BALCA, BIA, there's different appeals at USCIS. It depends. There's also federal immigration practice where you go to federal court and do various things. And those are with judicial judges, okay, appointed by the president at the time. So you can see there's all kinds. There's also the non-immigrant visa section of immigration law. It's like alphabet soup, depending on what it is you want to do. There's visas B, B1, B2, H1B, H2B, H3, O1, J1. I could go, I can't even say it all in one breath. So there's all kinds of different ways there. There's derivation sections where you have to worry about all of the ways that you can have your family members attached to what it is that you do. And there's what is referred to as cremation. Okay, not cremation as in burial, but cremation, criminal slash immigration, where the two intersect. So that is a very broad overview of what it is. And then, from there, there's many subsections. So, for example, let's just take the green card. So, the green card, you have to ask, what are the major ways that one can obtain a green card? So, the first thing that everybody comes to mind is, they think marriage. So, there's family based immigration. Okay. And of course, that's, the different relationships between the people and, whether it's marriage, whether it's from a lawful permanent resident to a foreign national, whether it's siblings, unmarried children, married children, children, children to, a son or daughter to a parent, there's different ways. But then there's also employment. Okay, there's an entire employment way of getting the green card where you do not have to worry at all about any family relationship at all or any family petition. There are people that wait 20 years to come here on a family based petition because they had no idea that they would actually be able to get a petition for employment, that it would go a lot faster, and that's the better way that they should go. So, with employment-based petitions, depending where you're from, there's different preferences of employment-based petitions, just like there's different preferences of family-based petitions. With the family-based petitions, there's F1, F2A, F2B, F3, F4. Okay, F standing for employment. So, F1 would be sons and daughters of U.S. citizens. F2A would be a spouse of a lawful permanent resident. F2B would be children of permanent residents. Keeping in mind, children is defined as anyone under the age of 21 who's single. F3 would be married sons and daughters of U.S. citizens, and F4 would be siblings of U.S. citizens. So that's the generalized family-based petitions. Now, for employment-based petitions, it also has preferences, and we could go for hours on all of these. Okay, but just in a subcategory, the EB, okay, it's EB1, EB2, EB3, EB4, and EB5. Those are the employment-based categories. And the ones that most people fall under would be EB2 and EB3, okay? EB2 would be for those people who have master's degrees or higher and get a position that requires the use of the master's degree. Obviously, we're not talking about someone who has a master's degree in engineering but gets a job as a, janitor. Okay, that doesn't work. So EB3 is someone with a bachelor's degree or at least 2 years experience doing what they need to do. And again, there's all kinds of caveats and procedures and so forth, but that's the generalized EB3. So we have EB2 and EB3, which are the norm. Now, for those highly qualified individuals, there's different categories under EB1. Okay, there's EB1C, which is referred to as a multinational manager visa. That's when they've worked as a manager at the foreign company and they come and work as a manager here. I mean, obviously, there's more issues and more things to look at, but that's the basic line. And so they can come here and be a lawful permanent resident purely because they are executives at companies that they own overseas and then started here. Then there's the EB1A. That's referred to as the extraordinary ability alien. And that's not easy to get. I mean, it starts off by saying, well, if you got a Nobel Prize, then you're in. But if you didn't, then you need to get these following. And I've had people in the past say, well, I definitely have 3 of the 10, so I'm definitely in. And it doesn't work like that. You know, it's a matter of arguing very strenuously, legally, persuasively, what the different categories are that someone might be under to get an EB1A. So those are not easy to get, but you know, an EB1A, you don't need a petitioner. It's a self-petition, but it's employment. And then, of course, there's the researcher slash professor type. They fall under EB1 as well. And then, so we discussed EB2, EB3, EB4. Those are religious people, okay? The EB4s are petitioned by churches and synagogues and mosques and so forth, and they come in as religious personnel. EB5 is the investment visa, okay? That's where, you need a lot of money to be able to come in, and the EB5 is, around $1 million investment and so forth. So that, in essence, is the gist of employment based for the green card. Okay, keeping in mind that this obviously takes a long time, but if one learns how to maneuver and get the non-immigrant visas first, they can come here on a non-immigrant visa, remain here for however long, and then be petitioned for the green card and wait until that all goes through, and then be able to stay here the whole time. So, I mean, for example, I'll give you one path. They come here on a B1, B2 visitor. Then they want to go to school and they change to an F1, which is student. And then they go to school for 4 years. They get a bachelor's degree. Then they get OPT, which is, basically working in the field for a bit. And then they apply and get an H1B. That is a non-immigrant visa. Someone has it's called specialty occupation visa. So they have a degree and the position requires a degree. And then from the H1B, they apply, the company applies for, the green card. So they do the PERM, the I-140. And then eventually when the visa number's current and everything goes through, they can do an adjustment of status. And they do adjustment of status based on the employment, and then they get their green card. Now, as you can see, just from that one example I just gave, that takes a very long time. But they don't really care, because it's not like they're waiting outside the US the entire time while it's processing. Okay? So that's a way of doing it. Now we go to the next area, which I said was citizenship, and it's not just one application, you become a U.S. citizen. There's all kinds of categories. There's different forms of naturalization. There's different qualifications for naturalization. And then there's derivative citizenship. There's people out there that do not even know they're U.S. citizens, but once applied for, they become a U.S. citizen. And it's not through naturalization. So it can't be taken away. And with derivative citizenship, they were a citizen many years ago when certain events occurred. They just didn't know. So that's that. So, going back to our line of the path to get the green card, they can just continue that path, remain for the requisite number of years, and then apply for U.S. citizenship. So, while not easy, and while it takes a lot of petitions, and while it takes proper planning, Theoretically, somebody can come here on a visitor visa and remain here all the years and all the way through until they become a U.S. citizen. So, it's just a matter of knowing what to do. So, I know that I have presented a lot of information in this particular video, but the purpose of it was to show that you don't have to try to come in, under the gun illegally in order to try to obtain legal status. There's all kinds of options out there that people just don't know about. Even just this morning, I received two. They were similar, but from different places on Earth. Two emails that said they're planning on hopping over the border illegally in the U.S. They know they'll be put in detention and then they want to apply for asylum. Well, one was from Russia, the other was from El Salvador. So, first, before they decide to do that, I would determine if in fact they have other options. Because who wants to go in knowing they're going to be put in detention? Number one, you can't assume that you won't just be turned around and deported at the border. You can't assume that you'll be given a bond to get out of detention. And you certainly can't assume you're going to win asylum. So while asylum is a valid form of relief, there are better ways of applying for it where you don't have to worry about being put in detention and you can still be here under certain circumstances. So again, it's a matter of knowing the whole puzzle, and it's a matter of procedurally doing things. You can't just, for example, go on the internet, research for 10 minutes on the internet and think that you know what to do and how to do it in order to come here, for example, in this, what I'm telling you, to get asylum. You just don't do that. You have to get a good consultation. You have to see what it is that you might qualify for, and then you have to decide which path, you might want to take without just jumping in and thinking that you know the best way to go. So, bottom line is get a good consultation as to your options. Don't just jump in blindly. Don't think there's only one way to do it, because there's not. And take a coherent analysis from a qualified immigration attorney to determine the best way that you're able to come here. And, my firm, when I do consultations, I very rarely go into the office now to do consultations because they're just all over. It just doesn't make sense. So, they're telephonic, through Facebook, through Zoom, through Skype, through Messenger, through WhatsApp. It doesn't really matter. When you think about it, it's all kind of the same. You get on some platform, get on the video, and you have the consultation. So what's it matter if you're physically sitting in the office or if you're 10,000 miles away? I mean, other than the time difference, doesn't make any difference, and it's the best way to go. And with the advent of all the different ways of doing things on the computer, for example, my office can do everything without you even walking in the office, which is okay. I mean, we have the web portal, and you can upload documents and answer questionnaires and do the consult all electronically. Even the fees, that can all be done electronically. And I can't even tell you the last time I took a check for a payment. My office just doesn't do that anymore. We do it all electronically. It's easier for us. It's easier for you. You don't have to remember anything. You just make it happen. And then there's communication portals in order to communicate with, the attorneys and the staff that's working on the case. So there's a lot to immigration law. In fact, once a year, there's a yearly immigration conference where there's like 3,500 immigration attorneys that descend upon whatever city it happens to be. Although now it's not as much because a lot of it is also on the computer, so you decide whether you want to go in person or not. But there's a lot of continuing education to keep up on things when you're doing immigration law, because if you decide not to do the continuing education, speaking about attorneys, they decide not to do it, or, don't practice immigration law full time, it's only going to negatively affect the client. You want to make sure that when you get an attorney, you do get one that does only immigration law, and has done it for a long time. And, without tooting my horn, you want to get someone who's a certified specialist in immigration law. And that's not just something they pull out of a hat. There's all kinds of qualifications to become that. And then there's a lot of qualifications to maintain it. I have to get recertified every 5 years. And I believe I have been recertified 4 times now, 5 times. You lose track. So I've been certified as a certified specialist for like 20 or 25 years. I can't remember. So that's that. Okay, well, anyways, for those of you who sat through this whole intro to immigration law, appreciate it. Have a good day.